And a good morning to you. Let me go ahead and tell you, I apologize because I don't have Four's camera set right. This is the first time we've been on since I put the green screen up, and I forgot about it because I suck, and so I'll have to wait till I can get that done. And, of course, I have to put my old man glasses on because I can't see anything. Glad to have you with us here this morning. Boy, is it? Did we get in and back into some really nice weather?
Yeah. It's been amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it was warm those couple of days. That we've got enough rain to kind of clear some things out. Got some more rain coming in tomorrow night into Friday, but looks like it'll be gone.
So Mandy and I were out in Scottsdale for a couple of days at a company event, and they said, hey, when we were first, getting ready for it or whatever a couple months ago, they're like, look, it's going to be really hot. It's going to be in the 90s. You need, dress like this, do this. Well, the day before we went out, it said, we have unusually cold temperatures for the next 4 days. So it was like 62, 66 out there in the middle of the desert. I mean, and then, of course, this week's going to be like 98 and 100 out there, right?
Yeah.
But I got to tell you that I had never been. I've been through Phoenix several times, but never, stopped in whatever Scottsdale area. That is an incredible place. Obviously, and this is Captain Obvious moment, but West Coast, humidity's basically zero.
It's a dry heat.
It is.
You know what they say? It's a dry heat.
It is. And allergy, your allergy stuff that you have here with pollen and everything, after a couple of days out there, of course, there's nothing, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, okay, what, I'm breathing just fine. What's the problem here? It's just different. But old town Scottsdale is an amazing little area. And the fact that the streets still have a lot of the original buildings from like the Western days, right? They just paved things, put concrete around, but they kept things in order. And what was fascinating is how much people out there love baseball, because that's where a lot of the spring training, goes on. And it is a major driver, landing out there in a major area of interest. In that large, that greater Phoenix area and community, it was refreshing to see how enthusiastic people were about baseball and the teams that were out there, and of course that had just finished up, a month or so ago, and people are still beaming from it, and it seems like it's a pretty good local, driver of the economy there, obviously, but the tourism there. Everything's incorporated with the major league teams, the Giants, and it was just really it was really neat. I'm glad I got to do that. That was
Speaking
a great thing.
Of baseball, do you know what happened on this day in sports?
Hit me with it.
In baseball. 1965. Something happened for the very first time in baseball in 1965.
All right, you're going to have to do it. You got to tell me.
The Houston Astrodome opened.
Wow.
Baseball played its first indoor game.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. 1965. Kerry, good morning.
That's crazy, isn't it?
1965.
Oh, that is crazy.
It opened.
How about that?
We watched a little baseball. We went and Addison wanted to go up to Kickbacks and get some dinner last night. So we went up there, and they were having a thing called Singo. Okay?
Okay.
It was musical bingo.
Okay.
You play songs, and you've got a bingo card, and you mark off,
That's cool.
playing
Singo.
Bingo. Yeah, pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But on TV, of course, a lot of sports was going on. I was watching one of I guess it was a 30 for 30, but it was about the Houston Rockets back in the Akeem Olajuwon days when they drafted him, and I think the guy that was coach was Tom Thibodeau. Does that sound right?
I can't
anyway,
remember.
it was a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
Back when basketball was basketball. But on the other channel, the Braves were playing, and Sean Murphy hit a 3-run home run, his first home run of the year, and so I got to watch the little Braves last night.
Oh, I love it.
college softball, baseball is well underway. I got to start finding some of that. Not a lot of it on TV yet, but it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
No
doubt.
The biggest thing speaking of baseball, and I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but just kind of get your take. I hate to do this because sometimes it opens up a can of worms. How about the new baseball bat, the torpedo bat?
Yeah, Quinn and I were talking about this yesterday. I went up and watched them play, playing at Marseille yesterday, and I took he and Kaylee out to dinner, after we were done, after they were done, and he says, "Dad, what do you think about the new Yankees bat?"
Well, you can't go there now because everybody.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But he was kind of being funny about it. I said, well, I mean, it's not illegal. Do you know the science behind it? What they did? I'm pretty sure
they borrowed it from golf,
right?
As far as I'm concerned,
with the club head, right?
Right, because the club head, they would move weight around to make the ball do what you want to do, be forgiving, go straight, hit hard or whatever.
Right.
And they did the same thing because there's certain requirements or specifications that you have to fit in a baseball bat,
That's
but
correct.
they didn't change it. It's not a bigger barrel or nothing else. And I'm like, why is this a story?
Well,
because it fits the requirements, and it's not just for one team. There's multiple manufacturers making it. It's
it's just the game's evolving.
Yeah.
And Quinn asked me what I thought about it, and I said, okay, look.
But now he still uses metal bats.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't apply.
But now he trains with the wood, right? Or the heavy bats, and all these things. Which is interesting. I will at some point we'll talk about the heavy bats they got now, the training bats that are not wood, that are metal.
Golf clubs are the same way.
Okay, for different things, right? I got him and G one last night. But I told Quinn, I said, listen, the way that you counteract this as a pitcher is you have to throw inside. You do. You have to increase the length. If they want to increase the length of the sweet spot by making the bat like this, what you got to do basically is you got to decrease it. And the only way to decrease it –
location.
Right, exactly.
And everybody tells you that that's the secret to pitching anyway. It's not speed, it's location.
And Greg Maddux, that's why he was such a magician.
Right,
he could throw in the
he
could throw in the low 90s, but he didn't need to. He could pitch in the 80s, right?
Right.
But, the idea behind it is being able to not get your hands through, okay, or get extension or get the barrel, the fat part of the barrel, to the ball. And the way you do that is by going inside. Mm-hmm. And by going inside, over time, that's why my brother Aaron was so effective as a pitcher. He threw the ball pretty hard. Okay, he did. But he threw inside. And this is the whole point of the bat, Lanny. If you're a pitcher, you have to say the plate is mine. If you're a great hitter, you go up and say, oh, no, the plate is mine. Who's got the ball? Who's got the ball?
Yeah.
That's how you become dominant as a pitcher. You own the situation, and you throw every ball like they're never going to swing at it. All right, because you can't control that part.
Right.
But you can control what you do.
Right.
They're going to have to throw inside to saw these bats off. And if they don't, if they keep letting these guys get extension and do, all this and this and that, guys, look, bottom line is if you're going to be effective, you got to come inside. Yeah. And you're going to hit people. And it's going to back them off the plate, and then you're going to be able to go to the outer part of the plate. I'm just saying that's where we are. There's too much plate coverage now, okay? And the metrics have been skewed so much that success is now defined as a hard hit, deep fly ball.
Right.
Not a base hit.
Right.
When you talk to the older, greater hitters, I don't care if it was Ted Williams many years ago, all the way through Mantle, all the way through. Did they hit home runs? Yes. But what did they do more than anything? They hit the baseball.
Yeah.
They got hits. Tony Gwynn, okay? The only metric he worried about is studying the pitcher's metrics, and then being able to hit the ball to all fields. Accordingly, that's why he was successful. The issue is we have skewed we have now, through the baseball world, made it believe that a quality at bat is driving a ball deep into the outfield, okay, even though it may be caught, or hitting a line drive instead of hitting the ball to get on base and get a base hit and score runs. What's the number one thing you got to do in baseball to win? What do you have to do?
You got to hit the ball.
You have to score runs.
Yeah.
You have to outscore your opponent. Right. And then everything that people say, well, pitching is what wins. No. Scoring more runs than the other team is what wins baseball. Then you back everything you've got back into it, okay?
Right.
Like the way you make up your team, all right? I watch teams out there like, well, that's the best player for that position. That is not the way you win baseball games. You win baseball games just like you win at chess. Each piece moves specifically. You can't have all queens on the board. That's illegal, right? You got to have your knights, your bishops, your rooks, kings and queens. All right, pawns, you got to have all those things. Mm-hmm. This is the problem with baseball. Again, adapting too much with the rules and taking away from the traditional side of things. Is the bat illegal? No. Does that make it right? No. All right, they're trying, just like NFL football, they try to make the game too offensive. Last year I watched playoff games 6-3, 17-12. Yeah. Okay. Why would you just not line up in the wing tee or the wishbone? If you can't score any more points than that, why would you not do that? All this stuff makes no sense. Well, this gives our athletes the best chance to get out there and move around and do. You can't win championships like that. You know what you win championships doing a tush push.
Yeah.
Okay. You line up and you hit them in the friggin' mouth.
Yep.
That's the way you win football games. It's not, well, this guy here's fast. I'm going to throw him the ball. That's all exciting and well, but does that win championships?
But the what you have to do,
know.
It's like everything else for just like you're talking about. In football, you have to have multiple points of attack because if you don't, you can't be successful. If you're one-sided, if you go back to basketball. You go back to the championship game on Monday night, you had some players that were living and dying by the threes. And if they're not falling, you're not winning. You got to be able to do all facets of the game so that if something's not working, you got to be able to go back to it. And if you can't win. You have to have diversity in your game. I don't care what the sport is. I don't care what you're doing. You cannot be that good because, coaching on a defensive side, like most people do, I'm going to find what your number one weapon is. I'm going to neutralize that weapon and say, okay, if you're going to beat me, you're going to beat me with these other kids. So you're not going to beat me with that one. I'm going to shut that one down.
No, you're right. And you and I have had multiple conversations. You being on the side, me and you being on together, whether it be high school or, even in youth league, right? Okay, what is the greatest threat here? Let's address that and then see what, go from there, right? I thought it very interesting and very proven to be true. Again, that the most athletic team did not win on Monday night. Mm-hmm. The best team did. All right? There was a stark difference between the athleticism. And those kids at Florida are great athletes. I'm not downplaying that. They are. But the dynamic play of the kids or the players at Houston, they could run, they could jump, pretty much shoot it pretty good. They defended pretty good, but the team structure and what that guy at Florida's done, that to me I'm not shocked that Florida won, but there was a stark difference between the athleticism of the players. I thought. Mm-hmm. Again, that doesn't take away from Florida's athleticism. Mm-hmm. That's how great Houston's athleticism was, and those players, Final Four teams, Duke, Auburn. Even Alabama down, wherever they are, Ole Miss had a good basketball team this year. They have nothing to hang their heads about because we're not going to have any more Cinderella stories as long as NIL's out there for college basketball. We're not. And we're not going to have any for sure in college football.
And I'm completely good with that.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. But, I think for reasons that are different than yours, though.
But, are you in the camp when it comes to Cinderella stories? Everybody that likes the Cinderella stories, when they tell me that, they like it until it gets down to the end. I don't want one in the Final Four. I want a blue blood in the Final Four. Yeah. Well, if they've earned a right to get there, then they deserve to be there.
That's it.
So you can't the conversation we were having before we went on the air.
Yeah.
You can't decide and create your own reality.
Right.
It has to be. This is the way that it works. This is the way that it works.
You mean the truth is the truth?
Yeah, all the time. All the time.
God.
Let me.
I love it.
Hang on one second. I got to take a break. I got somebody just pulled up, and I got to get them some shirts. We're going to take a break, and I'll be back in just a minute.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily, or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home. First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver or visit mooneyinsurance.com. At Stifel Nicholas, we're committed to offering investors personalized investment guidance. We're a full-service organization with department staffed with professionals that specialize in a wide range of investment opportunities, from the most conservative to the most aggressive. We strive to give each account, regardless of size, careful, individual attention. Call 4Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stifel Nicholas, member SIPC and the New York Stock Exchange. And we are back. Glad to have you along here on a 40-degree Wednesday morning, April the 9th. Nice. I didn't see any frost on my truck when I got up this morning. Thought there might be. There was a frost and freeze warning in place because they weren't exactly sure what was going to happen weather-wise. But needless to say, I'll take the nice weather. So where were we before I had to do that?
Oh, we're just talking about, basically, college basketball and the Cinderella part of things, and it just makes me think of Butler and Brad Stevens. Mm-hmm. And that probably not happening. As long as player, and then of course the portal's open back up, and now we see everybody. Even before. The Final Four, it was talking about, this player's going here and going here.
Well, and as soon as teams were eliminated, people were moving.
Right. Yeah. I'm just done with that. I'm so disinterested in that.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. What is going on, I understand, and I'm okay with that. The problem that I have, and this is with anything, and it's part of what's going on with a lot of things that we have nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have structure. You got to have structure. We don't have any structure. This thing is still the Wild Wild West. And I go back and I put complete blame on the NCAA. If they had gotten ahead of this and set up some guidelines, but they kept thinking, kind of like automakers years ago, we're too big to fail. Banks were too big to fail. NCAA was the same way. Nobody's going to make us do this. Nobody's going to make us do this. Well, it's a changing world, and you got to adapt. But what you have to do is you got to come up with some structure. And you've said it before, and I agree 100%. I don't think it changes until there's a new organization with a new czar that's in charge of everything.
There has to be a czar. There cannot be, there cannot be a committee.
Yeah.
That is where, especially when it's not transparent.
Well, okay, all right. So let me
can't do
let me
that.
stop you there. I'm okay with the committee, like Dan Patrick said. Everything's a TV show. March Madness, the playoffs, everything's a TV show.
Sales commercial.
They want to, that's what it's built for. But the funny part about what they were talking about is, if you want to really generate some interest, no host, but when the committee meets, the cameras and the mics are rolling.
Yeah.
You want to see what's going on. I've always said this in the NBA. On draft night, when they do the ping pong balls, why do you need to do it in the back room? They give away millions of dollars in Powerball, and they do the drawings right there live on TV. Boop!
Well, think about all the betting that could go on then too, like the betting industry and things like that.
No, I mean you've got to have some structure in what you do. Yeah. You got to be able to I don't want to say justify, but you got to be able to take out all the questions that would be in anybody's mind that things weren't done on the up and up. Yeah. Joan Bangle, good morning. Mike Self, Bill Linhart, Mike Probst, Brian Danner, good morning. Richie, Coach Boogar, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Coach Boogar was my recruiting coach when I went to Clemson.
It's fantastic.
Yep, great guy.
Love it.
Love Coach Boogar.
Yeah, you've talked about him before.
Yeah, love Coach Boogar.
Quite often and fondly.
Yep. So,
cool.
You got to have some structure in there.
Yeah.
And it's like everything else. It's not going away. Yeah. So you don't have to like it, but it's not going away.
Yeah, well, I think, too, at some point, parents stop being parents, and they letting other people raise their kids. And,
sometimes they're a little too much parenting, like Cooper Flagg's mom.
Well, I don't know. But –
a little over the top.
Well, this is the thing. He's still a high school senior.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
know Mike Jaminski was that way, too, except he stayed.
Right. He stayed.
You didn't go, but he was the same way.
Right. He started, And, we put norms in society based on age. A lot of things are based on age.
Yeah.
And you have to – there has to be a way to do that. And that's the most common way to – well, you reach a certain age, then you can do that.
Mark Lackey,
age doesn't necessarily equate to maturity or immaturity. It just equates to, being a certain age, you are where you are. Mm-hmm. Like it's like anything in life. You are where you are because that's really where you want to be. If you didn't want to be there, you'd make changes. And that can go for anything. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between people that complain about everything and people that, and what's wrong and, oh, woe is me and all this, and then people that go out and get it done and say, you know what, I'm going to be in control of my situation. I'm going to improve myself, number one, and then I'm going to try to improve my situation based on improving myself. And the whole issue is, well, let's talk about Cooper Flagg. I saw an article last night on, I believe it's Facebook, that a guy had written saying, hey, look, where's the growth and development gone? I'm going to summarize it, but, where's the growth and development gone in our society with people that are young? We're so quick to get them, paid and get them all this money and star and fame, but yet their frontal lobes, in theory with males are not developed until age 24, some of us 30. All right. So now we're going to put Cooper Flagg, who's a high school senior, is going to be drafted, going to the NBA, that's going to be on the road X amount of nights a year, playing in front of people. And let me tell you something, he's a great player. He is not initially going to be one of the better players in the league.
And he's not ready for the abuse he's going to take. His body's going to take in the NBA.
But the money is the money.
Yeah.
And that's what, the whole point is to
that
have a career.
That goes back to what I said. That's why I like NIL, especially in college basketball, because it'll keep kids in school because they can't make it in the NBA, but you want to chase that dollar.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah, it's things based on a monetary value instead of, like Nick Saban was talking about, doing things in order and the growth and value and building the base that you need. So when you do acquire those things through your work, through trading of your talents for your skills for whatever you're being compensated for, regardless of whether it's NBA or NFL or major, hockey, whatever, that you can handle those things and fully sustain them. The idea when you get money in is not to pay bills. It's when you get $1 in, how do I turn that dollar into $2? Right. That's the idea. But what we're so focused on is, I got to get mine so I can pay this. Mm-hmm. That is not necessarily, I would say, the most mature and acceptable mindset unless it's one where you are subservient to debtor all the time, just paying my bills. That's, you hear people say, I just got to go out there and pay my bills. Well, how do you take $1 and turn it into $2? Right? Yes, we all have things that we have to do. We have our power bills, our cars, our house, but how do I take that $1 and turn it into $2? And the maturity that it takes is not just about making it, but it's making it and helping yourself multiply it in whatever facet you can do, based on what you're trying to achieve. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people advising and we only know as parents what we know. And if we haven't had an accumulation of wealth or grown up in it, we really don't know how to handle it when we get certain, when all of a sudden, a large sum like that comes in. And that was kind of the premise of what that guy was talking about. He's like, look, what's the mental side of this going to do to him? And the first thing somebody would say or comment on there, well, who cares? He's got all the money. Well, there's a lot of people. But you want it to be a life.
You want it to be an experience that is more lasting than just that flash of the check.
Right.
Now, some people, I guess, are okay with that. Richie said, and he's exactly right. Richie said, everybody thinks they're worth more than they are. Now, you talked about growth and development, okay? And in sports, we both know that that's tremendously important. Mm-hmm. You're not getting enough of that in college basketball anymore because of the way this works. Now, another thing that has changed, okay, that I think's for the better, okay? It's a little different, I guess, model of doing things, but especially in basketball, so that you can get that growth and development. One of the things that happens, especially in college basketball, you get this 5-star McDonald's player, okay? And they come in and they sign at Duke or Houston or Florida or, wherever, UConn, and finds out maybe they really aren't that 5-star. Maybe they're not ready for this.
Right.
So some teams, and I can't remember the story that I read and who they were talking about, but there are some major college basketball teams, and I don't think this is a bad idea, they're really not recruiting high school as much as they're pulling from mid-majors, because that gives a kid an opportunity to kind of make that transition and see, do they have what it takes? I don't have a problem with that, because that gives them an opportunity to kind of get some growth and development, because so many of these kids they think they're an NBA player, they stay 1 year, they go in the draft, and then they make nothing. They bounce around the G League a little bit, and because we're allowing them to come in, at after 1 year of playing college basketball, I like the way that it's being done now. And I think you'll find as time goes on, you're going to see that, and you see this especially in the tournament, you can't do it with a roster full of one-and-dones.
No.
You got to have some maturity. You got to have some chemistry. 1 year, 100%. You can't build enough chemistry to make this work. A couple more comments.
Well, if you could, that's why John Calipari only won one at Kentucky, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think
that's right.
Was it one?
One. But the other side of it is, if those kids had stayed 3 years, he'd have won 3 more national championships.
Well, then nobody would have been able – I say nobody would have been able to compete.
But you know what I'm saying.
It would have been very difficult to compete against that. I mean, think about it. Devin Booker was the second guy off the bench. And he was a first-round pick his after his first year. He was he was like the 7th.
I know.
Now, he probably could have started him, but he was the second off the bench. It's first guard off the bench, but second player on those great Cowboy teams.
Oh, I know.
You talked about it before, and you said it before we got on air. We were talking about things. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And you cannot skip stages. Let me ask you this. And this is kind of a open-ended question. But
hang on one second. Woody, good morning. Sheldon, door's unlocked if you want to come in. Sheldon's watching. He's out there in his truck. I got him some T-shirts. Now go ahead.
Come on in.
Now go ahead.
So does growth and development occur from success or failure?
Failure.
Okay, so a majority of it, I think you get some from success because you can compartmentalize, internalize, externalize.
But if you don't have any failure, you don't develop like you should because you can't handle it. You're going to have it at some point.
How about this? How about degree of difficulty maybe without failure?
Yeah.
But struggle, that kind of thing. Well, the problem is there's no struggle.
Adjust and adapt.
Right.
That's what you have to do.
Oh, 100%. And, the instant success of things, what I've seen happen multiple times is, especially as kids are developing through high school going into college, there are coaches that will take an all-state lineman, all right, and because they're good athletes, stand them up and make them an all-conference linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
All-state line, but, they're a good athlete. Let's stand them up and make them a linebacker. I mean, at some point, sometimes you overthink the situations, right?
I agree.
Same thing in college. We see certain players. We don't see it as much today because they don't stay as long.
Mm-hmm.
But we see certain players, go in as this, and then all of a sudden the coach says, well, I'm going to turn them into this. Now, when Dean Smith made Donald Williams a point guard, who was a shooting guard back when I was in college.
Yeah.
Donald's a year younger than I am. He went to school at Garner with some guys I played baseball with at East Carolina that played basketball with him at Garner. He was obviously a great player on the national championship team in '93 and all this stuff. But Dean Smith purposely, I'm not criticizing him. What I'm saying is he wanted to enhance Donald's skill set, so he made him a point guard so he would have a better opportunity in the NBA, to be able to handle the game there. And made him a better defender because it kept him more engaged. They're just sitting on the wing and trying to find a way to get him to shoot.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a difference is what I'm saying. And, in today's world, I'm trying to articulate this right, and I really don't know how to do it, but from skill development side of things to overthinking things, my point is there's no sustainable path that people are put on. They're changed instantly and then trying to go from there.
Yes.
It's like a kid. I was talking to a kid a couple of days ago. He's like, well, I really want to play first base, but, he's much better in the outfield. He's a big, tall, left-handed kid. But he's got great range and he's got a great arm.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to play first base. Well, yeah, you might want to do that, and that's great. And you could probably do a pretty good job, but your skill set is you got a strong arm, you're big, long, you're tall, you actually track balls down really well.
Yeah.
You're left-handed. Why would you just want to play first base? Not that just playing first base is incredibly difficult.
Sure.
People think, just put him over there, catch. But no, it's incredibly difficult to play that position. Probably the second most difficult place to play in the field. Catching's first. But the point is, if you got that skill set, you don't sit there and say, well, he's tall and he's left-handed, so I'm just going to put him at first base. Right? You don't think and coach that situation. And there's so much of that goes on that it inhibits the growth and development of, players. Or taking somebody that's that is an all-conference, just example, like potentially an all-state, let's just say fullback, and then, making them like, a tailback. Well, yeah, but they're big and strong and can run pretty good. Well, yeah, but they have a special skill set that made them what they are.
Right.
Now you're going to try to expand it out and get away from doing what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Like it's different when you're trying to further develop skills
and
that
that's
they
not
have.
what's happening. You're
Right.
trying to fit, the
Square peg in a round hole. Yeah. Let me get a couple comments. Mike said, I don't have an issue with the players. And I'll go ahead and tell you, Mike, he as far as I'm concerned, he's still my brother-in-law, but neither one of us are married to the women that we were brother-in-laws.
Oh, gosh.
To. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
But
Okay.
we're still very close.
Right.
Mike said, I don't have an issue with players getting paid, but I do have an issue with players transferring 4 or 5 times. In my opinion, the money should not be tied to the school, but now that is the school should sign the kids to a contract just like a coach. If they leave, the contract has to be bought out.
They used to do that.
Here's the deal, Mike. Here's what I've said. First of all, I have no problem with NIL, but NIL should have nothing to do with the school. NIL is about being compensated for endorsing a product based on who you are. That has nothing to do with the school. If it has to do with the school, I'm with you, Mike. You need a contract. And I am completely in favor of contracts to get this stuff settled down. It needs to get settled down.
We had them.
I know.
National letter of intent.
But I'm talking about from the money standpoint.
No, but it takes care of it.
I know.
If you want to do these things and do that, if you want to muddy the waters, okay.
But it's not until we get a standardized set of rules that every school, right now, every school's the Wild Wild West. I am my own territory, and I can do whatever I want to. And there's no rules.
I would be interested in seeing how much money is compensated, like how much money is given. The one thing I always go back to is the students that go to school that pay the tuition for the, for the classes, obviously for the education, for the professors and things like that. Yeah, I would be interested in seeing if there's any monies that these students are paying because, there were a lot of brand new stadiums and
there's activity fees and stuff
that were built. All right, with government funded, which is there's no such thing as taxpayer funded money. The government has no money. They have the ability to print it, but they don't own it. Even though that's a big fallacy that we're often,
right.
Then that's another story for another day. But I would wonder, where, what the benefit is, to the one that's paying all that. And then they got to turn around and pay those loans back. But where did that money go and to who? Right? And so I just have a lot of questions about,
well, you're looking for accountability.
Well, I'm looking
and transparency,
and I'm looking for common sense.
Well, there's your first problem.
There's no standard set.
I know, but that's because you've got to have a centralized set of rules in government
and
to some extent.
That is why, when I get stuff in the mail about, hey, from, a former school that I, university I went to, hey, please give to this and do that. No, I'm not doing all this crazy stuff. I graduated with $30-some thousand of college loans, 30 years ago, okay? And I had to pay him and do all this. I'm not sitting here doing I'm not doing that. That is insane.
Yeah.
I choose not to. I'm not gonna participate. And that's why college football, as much as I love the players and how hard they play, it's hard for me to watch.
Well, I just watch it for the content of it and forget about all the madness that's going on around it because I just love the game. Mike said he agreed when you talk about 5 stars. He said, I believe Carolina had 2 this past season, but neither one was a 5-star in the end, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
And that's why you don't know. Everybody's got their own ranking system, so you can't go by that. Richie said, look at the evaluations of players from high school during COVID seasons. There were a lot of kids that got rated 4 and 5 stars that should have not been rated higher than 3 stars.
That's right.
All of this – forgive me for saying this, but opinions like buttholes. Everybody's got one. They're all different.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't go by that. Let me give you one story before we get out of here. I like this story. The Panthers have made a move, thinking outside the box at tight end. Have you seen this? They signed a project at tight end, 6'8", 245. Former Division I basketball player Colin Granger. He played 5 years college basketball, Ohio, Western, and Coastal. Because he's 5 years removed from high school, he can sign as a free agent.
Yes.
They've signed him on. We have seen some players that have transitioned. Tony Gonzalez.
He's a great example.
I mean, there are some tight ends that have done it, and it said it's not the first time that Carolina coach Dave Canales and general manager Dan Morgan have been a part of an experiment with the former basketball player. Both were in Seattle when the Seahawks signed a former Western Kentucky basketball/football player, George Font, 6'5", 315, to be a hybrid tackle tight end.
Yeah, sure.
He played 7 seasons in Seattle, the Jets, and the Texans. He's been working with Granger and told the Panthers about him. Mm-hmm. He hasn't played football since the 8th grade, but you know that he's got the athleticism to be able to do it. Panthers are hoping Granger will follow in the footsteps of Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, as well as some others that have played.
He's 6'8".
6'8", 245.
They're not going to be able to jump up and knock it down.
Mm-mm.
So it's just a matter of him having, grip strength
and
being able to hold on to the ball and take the hits.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the difference. Now his body's not calloused, but it's not injured either.
But
and so he's got some room there.
If he's an athlete and he wants to compete,
right,
he's at least willing to give it a try, and they're willing to give him a look.
I think it's great. And I think they should.
Yeah. Things are getting busy. God almighty. Too many people.
I love it.
I'm going to bop out of here because my parking lot is filling up. And what's your schedule next week?
That can be your Wednesday.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
If we need to change a day, it's fine.
No, I'll be back. Wednesday's good.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I got to get out of here. People's knocking at my doors. Time to go. Have a great day, everybody.